The year was 2007, and Estonia, a small but fiercely independent Baltic nation, found itself at the center of a global spectacle. What unfolded was not a conventional war, but a conflict fought in the invisible realms of cyberspace. It was a confrontation so unique, so unprecedented, that it left the world reeling. A modern David versus Goliath, where the weapons were not swords or tanks, but lines of code and relentless waves of digital attacks. A nation that had embraced the digital age like no other, where nearly every aspect of daily life was intertwined with the internet. Estonia, or Estonia as it was often called, had built a society on the pillars of innovation. Online banking, digital governance, even voting, all seamlessly integrated into everyday life. But in April of that year, this technological utopia revealed its Achilles heel. The trigger seemed innocuous at first, a decision to relocate a Soviet-era statue, the Bronze Soldier, from the heart of Tallinn to a less prominent location. For many Estonians, the statue was a painful reminder of Soviet occupation. But for the Russian-speaking minority and the Kremlin itself, this was a deeply provocative act. Protests erupted in the streets, but the real battleground was invisible, lurking in cyberspace. What started as subtle disruptions quickly escalated into chaos. Websites slowed to a crawl, then blinked out of existence entirely. Government portals became inaccessible, online banking services crashed, and news outlets found themselves unable to update their platforms. Estonia, the pioneer of e-governance, was suddenly at the mercy of an unseen enemy. Imagine trying to access your savings, only to find your bank's website unreachable. Imagine businesses grinding to a halt because they can no longer process transactions. Imagine an entire nation's government unable to communicate with its citizens. For ordinary Estonians, this wasn't a hypothetical nightmare. It was their new reality. The chaos raised one pressing question: who was behind this unprecedented assault? In the murky world of cyber warfare, attribution is a challenge. The attackers were not an easily identifiable army, but a shadowy network of hackers using hijacked computers or botnets to flood Estonian servers with overwhelming traffic. These machines, often belonging to unsuspecting individuals around the globe, became unwitting participants in the attack. But the timing was no coincidence. All signs pointed east toward Russia. Russia denied involvement, of course. Official statements dismissed the idea as baseless accusations. Yet the digital fingerprints were undeniable. Hacker groups known to have ties to Russian intelligence were implicated, and the alignment of the attacks with Moscow's political interests was too precise to ignore. But this was a new kind of warfare, where lines of accountability blurred, and the battlefield was as much psychological as it was technological. The attacks weren't just brute force attempts to overload systems. They were carefully orchestrated, leveraging distributed denial of service DDoS attacks to disrupt vital services. These attacks relied on a global network of compromised devices to send a tsunami of requests to targeted servers, overwhelming them and rendering them useless. Meanwhile, phishing emails, malware, and disinformation campaigns created further confusion. Social media platforms became breeding grounds for misinformation, fanning the flames of public unrest and turning citizens against one another. The relentlessness of the assault was matched only by its sophistication. Estonian officials discovered that their networks were being probed for vulnerabilities long before the attacks began, suggesting a level of planning that pointed to state sponsorship. Meanwhile, the use of decoy attacks, smaller, less damaging strikes meant to divert attention from the main targets, kept cybersecurity teams constantly on the back foot. Over weeks, Estonia's digital infrastructure was pummeled. Government officials scrambled to respond, working round the clock to patch vulnerabilities and reroute traffic. The Estonian Cyber Emergency Response Team, CERT, was thrust into the spotlight, battling an enemy they couldn't see and could barely anticipate. Slowly but surely, services were restored, vulnerabilities patched, and communications resumed. The immediate threat subsided, but the scars remained. International allies began to take notice. NATO convened emergency meetings to discuss the implications of this unprecedented attack. Could Article 5, which treats an attack on one member as an attack on all, be invoked for a cyber incident? The situation was uncharted territory. What was clear, however, was that the digital age had ushered in a new form of warfare, one that could bypass borders and cripple nations from within. Estonia's experience was a wake-up call for the world. NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence was established in Tallinn soon after, signaling a commitment to collective security in cyberspace. Estonia's ordeal became a case study, a warning of the vulnerabilities inherent in a hyper-connected world. In the aftermath, Estonia transformed its approach to digital security. The government implemented sweeping reforms, from advanced intrusion detection systems to regular stress tests designed to anticipate future attacks. Recognizing the power of disinformation, public campaigns educated citizens on identifying and resisting fake news. Perhaps most innovative was the creation of data embassies, secure data centers located in allied countries, ensuring that even in the event of a catastrophic attack, critical information would remain safe. But the story of 2007 was not an isolated event. It was a harbinger. Since then, the world has seen a surge in state-sponsored cyber activity. Election interference, ransomware targeting critical infrastructure, and espionage campaigns have become the hallmarks of 21st century conflict. Russia, emboldened by its perceived success in Estonia, has remained a dominant player in this domain, and the lack of clear international norms has left nations navigating a digital Wild West, where the rules are often made up as they go along. Consider how the aftermath played out on a global scale. Estonia's ordeal prompted governments and organizations around the world to rethink their own vulnerabilities. Tech giants like Microsoft and Google began developing more advanced cybersecurity protocols, aware that what happened in Estonia could happen anywhere. Governments invested heavily in cyber defense divisions, understanding that the next war might be waged with code instead of bullets. The echoes of 2007 still reverberate, a chilling reminder of how fragile our interconnected systems can be. In the invisible war of ones and zeros, the stakes are impossibly high. Estonia's experience serves as both a rallying cry and a blueprint for resilience, a call to action in a world where the next battlefield may be just a click away. And as we hurtle toward an increasingly digital future, one question looms above all others. How do we protect ourselves in a world where the next great war may be fought and lost before we even know it has begun? Looking back, it becomes clear that the attack on Estonia was not just an assault on one nation, but a wake-up call for the entire world. Cybersecurity experts often refer to it as the first cyber war of the 21st century. Yet, the lessons learned have not fully shielded us. Every day, new vulnerabilities are discovered, and new threats emerge. For every firewall built, a more sophisticated breach is conceived. For Estonia, their response was a triumph of resilience. But for the global community, it's a reminder. The next time, we might not be so lucky.